it's recording. All right, cool. Hello. This is Verse, and I'm with the in I don't know the infamous MIYA BPD God. MIYA, say hi to the audience, please.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about this. I forgot I'm on camera. I just woke up, but all right, cool. So we'll just get right into it. You're one of the most polarizing figures on this corner of Twitter right now, and uh, what do you and like you kind of came out of nowhere, and but you've mogged the entire space, I guess. How's that experience been for you?
It's been it's been okay. I never thought I'd actually come onto any kind of social media before. I used to resent this kind of place. I was always anonymous, posting on
Mm-hmm.
4chan, and finally I made the migration to IRC. But
Mm-hmm.
I got kind of sick of Discord, so I came over to Twitter just to see what was up. Um, I didn't expect to get such a big following so quickly. Actually, the reason I came here was just to as a kind of prompt for notes that I would later turn into essays. But
Yeah.
it seems like wherever I go, I tend to pick up these kind of cultish following. On Discord, I had it too,
Mm-hmm.
and a kind of big orbit server where many infamous antics me and Vedic Cyber God used to run.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely gets. I think it's part of the reason why you get the cultist following is that you have a very unique way of posting that's like very that has like a very confident energy to it, but it's also like something that's on paper both obvious and also incredibly uh insane at the same time, if that makes sense. Like if you're coming from a normie's perspective, it sounds insane, but
hmm
any kind of like into any kind of critical thinking involved, you go, actually that kind of makes a lot of sense.
It's
So
it's definitely a kind of curated schizophrenia. It's a writing style that I developed watching actual schizophrenics online and thinking, these guys are cool, I want to be like that. You see the kind of BBS poster that destroys a small little community just by his insanity and relentless posting.
mhm.
I'd always watch that and think, like, I wish that was me. That's cool. Like, I want to be that guy that comes in there and just fucks up everything, causes so much damage to a community just by being so autistic and
Mhm.
relentless about this schizo spam. Unfortunately, I had first cultivated it. I used to long post um, destroy generals just by constantly changing identities, but long posting and spamming down people and then getting in fights with myself.
Mhm.
But on Discord, it's a lot more of a fire hose of shit posting. I
Mhm.
enjoyed the speed, and I kind of brought that over to Twitter.
Yeah. It definitely comes across as like a curated schism. Well, to me, a friend of mine, when I started following you, he and I were both following you, and you like destroyed him, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And he and he hates you
which,
to this day. Now you don't even, you
which
definitely won't even remember him, because he doesn't like comment much anymore, and he's blocked you. But it's still to this day the funniest thing I've ever seen. And
yeah, it's I was honestly I was a bit surprised because the crowd I hung around with Discord was like ex-4 chainers.
mm-hmm.
So coming over to Twitter, it is a different environment for me. I mean, I'm still not comfortable or used to identity posting. Even it might come surprising because I have such a narcissistic, cultivated agripore identity that like I constantly reference. And I'm always bringing up Mia gang, but it's almost a kind of a cult that I pushed into
Mm-hmm.
coming with such strong anonymity that instead I went all the way through on the other direction, embracing the narcissism that's kind of inherent in the environment. But still, the the reason why I can cut through it so easily is that at the end of the day, I don't care. Um, there's
You know,
nobody can say anything on Twitter that will ever hurt my feelings or attack an insecurity because anything I presented of myself is something that is already I'm aware as a distance from myself as a digital persona, something
mm-hmm.
artificial that they're latching on something that I've already created for them. Usually it's a target that I present for them to take them to another line.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was talking to Sunny about that too, where like it's the internet, everyone relax. Uh, but it's difficult for many to I don't know, a lot of like especially when they're like name tag types where they can't separate their identity from their online persona, that they take everything. Don't take anything with a grain of salt. Even if you're like saying something true, there's still like a performance to the truth. If that makes sense, I don't know how to explain. Which seems obvious if you're online, but I guess other people don't see this.
No, I agree. It's something I've posted about before. I think actually the way people tend to view anonymity in posting, the kind of what you call it, the kind of X-Chan style posting, with
Mm-hmm.
this trolling and egolessness, they treat it psychopathic or like a dangerous kind of manipulative mindset. But really, I think it's the most secure and safest way. Otherwise, what people are doing by like having these digital personas that they conceive as themselves, just um, in text, when in
Mm-hmm.
reality it's a kind of twisted, it's informed by a digital social network and all these algorithms that are twisting the way people engage with you. Um, it crosses into it. And when I say that me as an egregore, I mean that we're all egregores, all our avatars online are kind of a an egregore in the sense of a collective thought entity, a thought form that's given a life
Mm-hmm.
by belief in other people. These personas get lives of their own that then feed back into how you engage with it. You know, when you post on Twitter and get engagement back, you kind of start to build a, you know, they use the term brands. You know, you start to build a brand in it that you naturally start to try to um, cultivate and re-engage with. You become tied to your brand, and you you lose engagement when you move off of it.
Yeah.
And don't don't engage as strongly, so you're kind of the a
Oh, you're
passive
going in and out. Wait.
condition.
Sorry, you said like you gain engagement when you engage with the egregore, and then you lose it if you don't.
What I mean is that the engagement metrics, it conditions you
Mm-hmm.
into going back into your brand, or when you stray from it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, I'm getting messages on the side.
No, it's not what you're saying. It's the connection was weird for a second.
No, I
Um.
know. I'm getting distracted. Let me turn off my notifications.
Oh, gotcha. The so from what I remember, the you kind of started off with gaining traction with that meme, with the end of the world meme, uh, that like I've seen a million iterations of, and
Oh, you
then
mean the graph,
yeah,
uh,
like
the clock,
like the compass,
uh,
the compass of
pick,
like
pick, yeah,
apocalyptic
pick a
events.
future. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What that was actually it was an existing meme. It was just poorly made, so I recreated it. It was, you could tell it was made by a leftist that had a bit of a he kind of tried to inject his utopian propaganda into it, and also just it had reused an image, and I think one of the ones it had reused a quadrant too. They
Mm-hmm.
couldn't think of enough features. Um, but the way I designed it was actually intentionally trying to. First, I intended it to go viral. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
frame something as a question, it gets a ton of quote
Mm-hmm.
tweets that people want to respond to. Uh, a few other viral tweets, they all ended question marks. It always works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a payload. When you look at the options available, there's only really there's a few that are just a given of that are actually what we have now, just extended to encompassing an apocalypse, something like the global homo world
Mm-hmm.
subjugation, the new world order, uh, um, that classic anti-Semitic uh, Jew spider tarantula leading hordes of gays. That's the background image. Then
Mm-hmm.
another techno reclusion,
The
anti-native.
eco-fash one. There's like the theocracy one.
Right, but it was all led towards the eco-fascist global genocide.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I pointed out in other places that it's the only real exit I see that you can actually action on. Everything else is their inevitabilities or the current course of things or some, sci-fi fantasy like a
Mm-hmm.
Matryoshka brain exit. It's just a digital universe conception or an
Mm-hmm.
AI extension. But the only thing that I believe we have agency to actually do is kind of reversal of modernity and capitalism, which what we're experiencing right now with like, coronavirus collapse.
Mm-hmm.
That the supply chain is getting reversed. Slowly things are, or well, quite quickly things are going to go back. At least 20, 30 years. Even, I don't think it'll be the collapse itself. It's not going to be a permanent delay of modernity, but
Mm-hmm.
still you'll see things go reverse about 10, 15, 20 years of what they were before. I think the modern globalism with the international supply.
Yeah, definitely. It'll definitely be a major hit to globalism because people will reconsider letting, mass immigration and letting all refugees and unlimited trade and all that kind of stuff, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you think that the only one we have agency in it is a future in which it requires like a Kaczynski type like reaction to modernity. The rest of them are just they're just going to be what they're
I
going to
mean,
be.
the way I see it is that there's a distinct timeline that we've been following with the advance of modernity, with things getting more efficient. Uh, Capitalism gets more defined and more advanced as the technology advances. It's all about it's all about the uh, organization of resources and arbitrage of turning things, self-organizing raw resources into more complex ways to gather energy out of it. Uh, the end goal, the teleological line, the final point is is an AI that would bootstrap itself. And I believe in all the techie apocalypse of AI. I don't buy any kind of friendly AI. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think what it'll do is very clearly outmode us, and I don't even think it'll be something like just extinguish humanity. I don't think they'd care enough to. But what'll happen is we'll become to an AI what ants or some or monkeys even are.
You don't think that they would just like fuse us with like like slowly replace our cells with like nano cells or whatever, and then we'll be like
And
cyborgs?
they'd only do it if there's a benefit to it. And
Mm-hmm.
AI will have uh, AI will have the same goal that all technology and capitalism has had with using humans as the tool, and it'll just be for uh, equilibrium of inefficient resources, self-organized to,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to
That's fair.
distribute them arbitrage.
So, but you think that it just so do you think it'll be its own like an alien entity that just kind of decides to do whatever it feels like with the universe and will just be its pet, like akin to like what Kaczynski was thinking, or do you think it'll be so, or you just think we won't care about us whatsoever and it'll just go on about its business?
I mean, it's one of the quadrants actually in that chart. It's the pan-galactic strip mining singularity. I think that's what I have described it as.
Oh, you
I
think that's
imagine like all planets, everything strip mined, stars, everything you just utilize for its resources to continue on the expansion of the utilization of resources.
and
The
humans
way I
are the
see it is
like
that,
animals?
I mean, we've already been that. We've been the tools for that.
Mm-hmm.
The machines would then just take over for us as a more efficient tool for that. But it's capitalism as a material dynamic that's organizing these forces. Uh, it's all it is when there's the second law of thermodynamics,
Mm-hmm.
um, the distribution of when there's an inequilibrium, it's self-organization of the inequilibrium to most quickly dissipate
Mm-hmm.
to reach equilibrium.
All right, that's fair. I have like I definitely don't have a positive view of the AI. Like I don't think it's gonna be like all sunshine and rainbows. Like Kurzweil would say, like a techno future that's like positive. We're all making heaven. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like partial to a strip mine, but also I want to be positive and hope that we get turn cyborg and then we get like some role. But you never know.
I mean,
Um,
it's all about positioning in my mind. I look for I would consider myself a futurist. I enjoy. I'm looking forward to our automated cars, and I I, I like Alexa and shit like that. I enjoy the kind of luxuries provided by these technologies. But the way I see it is that also there's a looming overhead threat of the planet goes too far. It's a
mhm.
kind of nuclear Armageddon that's just dangling overhead not something that we can really control. It's not even to the point of government geopolitical forces. There's nothing to protest against. There's no there's not a question of just convincing Silicon Valley guys, don't do this. This is dangerous, because it's just there's money in it. If one guy doesn't do it, the next 5 companies will do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really you can't just organize a international NGO to say, let's not focus on this route of development in the same way you can tell people not to get nuclearized. It's the economy will move forward towards efficiency. That's what I mean by capitalism being a material dynamic. It's as strong as any other law of nature.
Yeah, that's fair. Wait, so I actually am surprised that you said that you're interested in tech. I would have thought you had more of a, I don't know, like a reactionary Hakan vibe, where you're kind of like, even though I know you like embrace technology, I never thought of you as being like interested in like AI and futurism and stuff as well. It doesn't. It never comes across.
It's a question I'm often given on my account: is how do I reconcile a kind of Landian ethnic land accelerationism with my Ted Kaczynski style pine tree eco-fascist posting?
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is that we existed in a Evola's conception of tradition, capital T tradition, contrasted against the conception of modernity, is the tradition was cyclical eternity. It's something that when you lived in those societies, you didn't really see things on a progressive timeline as we do, time moving forward, but in circles, generations cycling, going through larger cycles of, the golden ages or the yugas, but all in a continuous recurrence. At a certain point, though, I've traced the point before to Christianity. I don't actually really fully believe that. It was just more me trolling to get engagement. But at a certain point, we made a transition towards a modernity where we started moving forward, not in a circle. And the way I see it is that unless there is a return to a tradition, and that tradition isn't 100 years ago or 200 years ago, just a return to pioneerism, as some people like to do, or just a return to like, oh yeah, my grandpa had 10 kids, that's tradition. It's a return to cyclical eternity, to a different conception of time and civilizations and generations. And unless there is a return to that, then we're stuck here in our modern timeline. We don't really have a choice with it. I mean, correlation, I don't believe in, I don't believe, hold on a second.
Wait, sorry, you're cutting out. But like what you said is interesting, that like as long as we stick to, wait, sorry, what? Oh, as long as we stick to like a linear timeline, we're going to be stuck in this like movement of this idea of progress. And if we don't return to like a circular form of time or a recurrence, a yuga, a whatever, like what all previous conceptions of time were like, we're gonna be ultimately kind of fucked in this like techno capital machine, effectively, right?
Yes. When I say I'm a Landian accelerationist, and I believe most of the people that call themselves accelerationists on Twitter aren't actually.
I'd agree with that.
I don't consider there being any kind of agency on the march of capitalism or the inevitable development of AI. There's not like there's no decision to be made on how the future is handled. There's no political or social movement that can do anything to stop the development of capitalism towards AI. So I don't really. I have a taste for tradition. I have a taste for things that are proven through tradition as a kind of heuristic. Like when it comes to my personal nutrition and medicines, I prefer tradition over like modern medicine, because I know that it's more effective. And I consider the heuristic of tradition, of being time tested over thousands of years, to be
it's
more
robust.
reliable than
it's Lindy and robust.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's Lindy compared to the scientific method, which I think is it needs more time to reach any of the kind of same conclusions. I don't think most of the developments of science, I don't think they've come anywhere close to the level of knowledge that was developed through thousands of years of tradition. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different kind of research model, and I think the scientific method is just it's too engineered top down,
Mm-hmm.
and it and it hasn't had enough time to process to reach any like strong conclusions in many areas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
There's a book called Against Method for anyone listening that also like pretty much it's by a guy named Paul Feyerabend, and it's awesome, and it pretty much has the same idea about like how the scientific method is effectively not only stifling to knowledge creation, but overall it's just kind of a misdirection. Brilliant, great book.
interesting. What does he offer as an alternative?
He actually thinks that we should go back to like the whole tinkering model that they used to do before, like alchemic models where they just did whatever they want without like
Mm-hmm.
a rule, and that actually allowed for more breakthroughs because most breakthroughs are accidents anyway. They're never like preconceived, like I'm going to come up with this idea and I'm going to use this method. It's never like the same, this actual method. Even when they use the scientific method to like prove a discovery, it's usually like post hoc. So he's like, we just like get rid of the scientific method really to begin with, because that's not how we derive value. Just like, for example, like if I took YouTube, there's no like rule set about what we should do beforehand. People just make a lot of shit and then all the good stuff rises to the top. So
Mm-hmm.
he's like, that's what science really is anyway. So you should just accept that that's how it like it really ought to be, and you'll get better results. Because right now we're removing ideas that are non-scientific or that are based in rationalism or based in other types of like heuristic models. We're just completely nixing them from the pile of things that are possibly true. So that was his
Mm-hmm.
whole. He argues it better than I am, but that was basically his idea.
Yeah, the majority of work done in science is it's throwaway junk. It's just educated women and data idiots are just paper pushers
Uh-huh.
born into another life that got an education in science and think they're doing work by gathering data on bugs. It, it's pointless. Um, when I was young, I had read Thomas Kuhn's his
Oh yeah, the scientific
scientific
revolution.
paradigm.
Yeah.
Right. I always liked he was an engineer in
Mm-hmm.
training, and you can see that in his writing style. He writes like an engineer, very clear, straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is the way he defined the scientific paradigm, which I do believe it is an accurate conception of how science
Mm-hmm. I agree too.
proceeds. It's a series of someone will have a breakthrough that'll set a new stage, a new paradigm of these are the rules they follow. And then what the scientists will then go on to do is test the limits of these rules, find where they don't um, coincide or cohere to reality. And then eventually, when there's too many for it to be stable, a new paradigm will have to be built that will correct for the, the failures of the previous paradigm, answer for the places where it didn't match with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea is that slowly over time they'll keep developing their paradigm to higher and higher degrees of accuracy. Um, but this is the process of the scientific method.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very bumbling and confused. It's kind of a blind man walking against the wall to find the limits until finally he realizes those weren't walls at all. They were a hedge bush that he could climb over, and uh, then moving on to the next limit, the next wall he could think of
Exactly.
before. Um, the process of tradition, it, it reaches this, it's the same goal of knowledge development, testing the limits of the world in an actionable way. But how it works, I mean, it's basically natural selection at a cultural level. It's someone eating the red berry, realizing that they die if they eat the red berry
Mm-hmm.
over it happens 5 or 6 times over a few generations. They pass down an oral tale that the red berry has a demon in it, and you don't eat the red berry or you'll die. But
Mm-hmm.
this is heuristic knowledge. You don't need to know the process of what's killing you in the red berry, but you do know you can develop from that thought that maybe if we crush the berry and dipped our darts in it or our arrows in it, we could poison the enemy. And they try it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, it gets passed down. That's a model of tradition. That's how heuristic knowledge develops. Um, what happens is though, at the end of the day, you know that these berries are poisonous. You might know some more details like the berry won't kill you if you immediately throw up afterwards, or you can poison someone, it'll make them sick. But if they get in their blood, but it won't actually kill them, that kind of thing. You'll learn more details over use, but you won't know exactly how it works. What science tries to do is they'll take the barrier apart, find the exact chemicals that are part of it, realize that this is the thing that interacts with your cells in a certain way. But they still won't be able to until it'll take another 300 years or so before they're ever able to get a holistic model of the body to understand exactly why this interaction with your cells causes this reaction. Because they're trying to understand every part from the top down. There's they they don't even understand why a pinprick in your finger can affect your foot.
Yeah, they miss the emergent properties because they're trying to dissect things and see the whole and trying to understand the whole by understanding its parts, which works sometimes, but it doesn't work in all or most situations. So you stop being productive in a lot of scenarios, right? So like all these traditional cultures, they have like medicine that has been shown to work, yet they have no idea why, but it doesn't really matter because that's not what they were looking for anyway. So they'll write some symbolic something, they'll tell some story about why it works, and then science is like, that's stupid, and then they miss out on actual verified information. Yeah. And also for those listening, the book that Maya was talking about is The Structures of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. I'll link that as well. What were we saying?
There is one element in which I consider the research useful. I was asked the other day by Land Shark. I never got back to him, but he asked me what I thought about molecular astronomy, or I think it was modernist astronomy. I told him, he said that it's a totally obscure topic, but he thought I might have some thoughts on it, which I do. The way that I think the term is molecular gastronomy. It's a kind of modernist conception of cooking that was developed in the 80s of a kind of, they want to redesign cuisine from the top down, and that same kind of model that I described how science approached it as the series of chemical reactions. They thought that they could then redevelop not a conception of, that you can heat butter it because it tastes well on meat, but why does what interaction with meat and butter causes the taste buds to interact in such a way that it tastes good. And from that understanding, then develop new concoctions, new recipes that wouldn't make intuitive sense, but do work at a logical level when you broke things down apart. I can't think of any examples. I'm sure there's a few iconic ones, but maybe, I don't know, like a pineapple that you set on fire mixed with the raspberry sauce. Maybe it's surprisingly delicious. It's something weird like that, or pineapple and salt, probably some shit like that.
Yeah.
That is one model. It does work in that way, that you can create surprising things that you wouldn't normally test, at least not with another 1,000 years of heuristic trial and error. You can basically shortcut the process. But say you computer modeled a traditional heuristic trial and error, which is how machine learning is processed. It's not built on any scientific method. It's built on the traditional method. You'll simulate 1,000 years over just a few minutes. You'll run the cycles and trial and error, and that's how you get situations where the chess bot will do moves no one would have ever thought of, or just don't make logical sense unless you're thinking like 10 steps ahead, because he's not thinking from a logical perspective. He didn't put in logical code that it then generated moves from. What it did was just infinite trial and error, developing heuristics that ended up working, and then just running off the heuristic. They don't need to understand why it works. They just know intuitively it does. It would still, if you gave it enough time, they would come to the same conclusion that these molecular astronomers would have come to too, from doing it from the top down. But it's just what they've done is they found a shortcut by understanding the logic and then making these counterintuitive connections. But the reason why it worked in cuisine and it hasn't worked elsewhere in science is that food is simpler. They're able to make these, combined salt with fruits that don't seem like they make sense, but turn out to be tasty, or develop new umami, a umami burger or something like that.
It also has like smaller iteration time. Like you can taste it immediately and go, okay, this works or this doesn't work. So
that's true too.
Other science doesn't really
work with medicine, though.
Exactly. It wouldn't work with medicine or any other larger experiment.
Exactly.
You can't iterate. Yeah, that makes sense. It also is funny how a lot of like machine learning has ended up just retroactively proving a lot of like, human pattern matching. Like, seeing like physiology with like criminals, or like racial differences, or sexuality
Mhm.
differences from faces and stuff. It's funny how a lot of like previous pseudoscience is being confirmed on some level, at least heuristically, from AI, which I don't.
Right.
They're not really willing to. People aren't really willing to talk about at the moment.
No, and I'm not surprised. I know it's a kind of common thing. People point out AI is racist, even starting with that A Twitter bot that Microsoft had developed, Fortran trained to be racist, but also just the these heuristic testing facial recognition models that right they resurface old physiognomic theories of what is it, the skull measuring and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But the reason why is because fundamentally they are designed by being trained heuristically, they're following an intuitive traditional model of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
While society, the modern West, has for so long followed this modernist scientific model since the Enlightenment, one that just does not compare with reality. At least they're trying. I mean, they have their paradigms. They're trying to slowly get more and more close, but at the end of the day, if you're not taught this anti-knowledge that science provides, you would already have a coherent model of reality. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
someone to explain the logic for you. You don't, when you know that, if you if you're walking and a turtle is going half your speed, you know that you'll pass the turtle. Or you shoot, what is it? You shoot an arrow, the Achilles arrow on the turtle. You shoot an arrow and it's at half the speed of the turtle. You know that eventually the arrow will quickly pass the turtle, even if
Yeah.
the logic of the what is the
It's a paradox. I'll remember the name of it as you keep talking.
right dagger or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those like
Right,
ancient Greek
right,
paradox about that talks that
right.
if you keep having the distance, you'll never reach the destination type thing.
Yeah. However it
Whatever it
goes,
is. Yeah.
you have these logical paradoxes because they've tried to develop a model of reality that can be explained in simple terms. Uh, but you can't. These paradoxes can't exist in real life if you just understood the world intuitively. You wouldn't have these problems. But what these are is that's a paradigm that ran up against the walls of reality and conflicted with it. And at
Zeno's
that point, then
paradox.
it's time to right, exactly.
Yeah.
But, now it's time to readjust it. Our problem is, I don't see what was the point in the first place. There's no reason to. So to go back to your question, I mean, how my acceleration is, but also have my feet so deep in tradition and kind of reactionary mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's just um, it's just what I consider to be an accurate model, and uh, it, it's this kind of intuitive heuristic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I've ended up settling on after going through the phases of rationalism and the post-rat shit with less wrong and all that. I never
Mm-hmm.
really got my feet into it. It always smelled funny to me, but I'd gone through all of it. I mean, when I was younger, I used to read lots of books. I thought, all knowledge came from nonfiction, citational. I went through the whole routine of, I started with the kind of pop nonfiction and quickly went down through the sources to find more meaty works until eventually I was just reading scientific journals. But
Mm-hmm.
finally now I don't even bother. I can know with an immediate gut instinct and just wait for I can post it and someone will find the scientific journal that confirms it, post it in my comment, tell me you're right. It's not bullshit. And I don't even read that. I don't even click it. I just retweet it. But yeah, they was right.
You
Like I
begin
can
to get
say that
intuitive. Yeah.
smoking, right? Like I know that smoking cigarettes increases testosterone. Well, why? Because people who are high T smoke cigarettes and through centuries men have been smoking it. But it doesn't make sense that it wouldn't. Um, and it's really bullshit. Totally unbelievable explanation. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to worry about it because it checked out.
Mm-hmm.
If I posted it now, people for evidence, people go fill it up with evidence. I don't need to find it myself.
It makes sense, and that is actually an interesting. That's what makes your brand interesting is your you double down on like intuitive heuristic knowledge, which often threatens like people's like mental models, and it's actually why my friend got so upset when you destroyed them, which is hilarious to me. It's because, and I kept asking him, like, why do you find what Maya is saying to be so upsetting? And it never really came down to any real difference. It ended up kind of just being like you're doubling down, and also like an aesthetic difference of like you just are portraying a worldview that is different than his, but he still got super butthurt about it. But
I know there's some kind of shell shock people sometimes go to an interaction with my account. The funny thing is that it's always for little different reasons. Some people that have totally invested in reading like citational knowledge, they're shocked by the suggestion that I don't need to cite a source, or I'll cite myself as a source. I find it kind of funny that a lot of times people will post under my thread that Nietzsche said this or that, and I read through Nietzsche at some point in my life. I read through them, but I don't recall. I don't quote him. I remember his funny jokes. I don't remember what he said or didn't say. But I said it. I don't need anyone else to say it for me. I don't need to quote someone to confirm my ideas, or sometimes I'll post quotes on Twitter, and I won't say their quote. I'll just post it. It doesn't make a difference if I said it or someone else did. So I don't care if people go around and repost me on other forums or on 4chan or wherever they want, and just say pretend they were saying it. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Its truth or falsity is like inherent in the statement itself. It doesn't require like validation from someone who's been checked out or whatever, who has passed the test. Give me 1 sec. I need to get my charger for my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't require like you getting approval from some higher source or some external source, which is another thing that like people so-called midwits would hate, is that they don't get the external validation. It doesn't pass the credential check, even if it is true and it will ultimately pass the credential check. The fact that you aren't bending the knee to academics or whomever when you make a statement with such confidence is actually specifically why that pissed my friend off. Is that he's just like, well, that person is like is saying things so like confidently, and they're just like, it's all crazy, and you're like, it's not really that crazy if you take 30 seconds to think about anything Maya says. But
it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I will admit I do often I do design my posts to be somewhat abrasive, especially when I know it has potential to be. I mean, not all of them, but like I think people they look at the way I write and they think that I must be like sitting down and really artistically switching out words with bigger words and the thesaurus, but I don't. I just dump it out really quickly. Half of my posts are done while I'm driving. I don't or on the toilet. I don't put much effort, but when I do, it's only for two reasons. But then I'll go back and edit posts before I hit submit. One is usually that I just run out of characters. I have a flowery, over high verbiage writing style, so I'm always like trying to just trim down the post to include characters. Other times is when I realize I can say something a little bit more abrasive. And the reason I do that is because I just want more engagement on Twitter. I don't really care if it's negative or positive. It's just I want to see people engage with the post and get indirectly influenced. So it sort of being into my orbit of influence. So I'll do things like there was one recent one I had I was talking a little bit about a past as I said something like coming from a background of extreme wealth. I'm lucky that my parents were just distant and not abusive, which was I'm not even going to say whether or not that's a true biopic piece of information. My point was just that I was talking about how I was just making a reference to the high amounts of abuse in high income families. I made sure I changed it to say coming from a background of extreme wealth. I knew that would piss people off. It did.
Yeah.
So
and I'll get engaged.
from people calling me. Yeah, exactly.
It is I mean, to anyone, it's funny how, because you have the midwit topwit meme with Sunny, but like it is funny how like there are people who legitimately can't see this. Like to me, it's painfully obvious from the second I started following you that like while you are saying like truths, it is kind of like partially performance or partially a writing exercise. Like just you're saying shit, but it's just slightly more incisive than it otherwise would be. But like there are people I'm watching and I'm reading your comments and I'm just like, how the fuck are you missing this entirely? It's just going completely over your head, which I guess you kind of hyperstitioned like this midwit thing into existence, and now it's impossible to not see. You're like, oh shit, you really can't, you genuinely cannot understand what's going on. You're like, yeah, well,
I know,
all right.
I know they can't. I've mentioned before, like the most common feeling if I have any kind of emotion in Twitter, I know people get very angry and upset at me. They get hurt, they get insecure, they start to kind of, sometimes they go into a shock when I try to them through directly, try to get their insecurities, trying to fuck with someone. But the only thing I ever feel is either I'm amused or I'm baffled. Usually I'm baffled at just how fucking stupid these people are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed at how dumb people can be online. I don't. I realize though it's not as simple as IQ. I just
Mm-hmm.
say IQ in that way because again, it's an easy model to use, and also
Mm-hmm.
it makes people upset. But it comes down to insecurities. They put mental blocks in their head that don't allow them to process certain pieces of information because their ego wouldn't be able to handle it. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm sure they understand that I'm being like when I'm engaging with someone and I'm messing with them, dunking on them in quote tweets, they know that I'm dunking on them and screwing with them and playing stupid to screw with them. But they can't admit it to their conscious ego because that would that would break their self identity as the smartest person in the room, which is
Mm-hmm.
the main, the dominating insecurity of the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
They need to live on that knowledge that nobody can be outsmarting them or playing dumb. So even even when it gets to the point of total absurdity, they'll still continue to believe that no, she's not actually as smart. She's not actually playing dumb. She is just dumb as pretending to be. That's why they'll accuse me of shit like using a thesaurus to flip out
Mm-hmm.
my words or making it like convoluted and that actually nothing I make is. I get so many posts telling me that whatever I'm saying doesn't make any sense. This is gibberish. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that one
And
makes
like
me a
all
lot.
the other people there, yeah, all the people there, you know, that are obviously enjoying the content and communicating with it, replying with to me and having conversations about it, they're convinced that they're all just hoodwinked by some pretentious blurb that everyone's just following for me pretending to be smart. And it's such an extreme. It comes from such extreme insecurity. It's not stupidity. It's insecurity. Of
For
course,
sure.
they're also somewhat stupid too. I mean, they're dumber than I am, but they're not exactly stupid people.
It actually takes a specific, and that's what makes the midway thing brilliant because it takes a certain. You clearly aren't dumb because you are engaging with the idea, but there is the insecurity and like the blockage that doesn't allow you to actually accept the full nature of whatever you're saying, which makes for a great entertainment for the
Right.
rest of us. And it's like my friend, my
Mm-hmm.
friend's an intelligent dude. He's a programmer, but he cannot. It was specifically in your thread about sexuality, and he was fucking like he is still to this day. If I bring it up, we'll get irate. It's the best thing ever. Um, I think it was mentioned. You mentioned like
Which was the specific?
I think it was you saying that like if you're high value male, then high value men will like present their young daughters to you, and and this concept and like this concept was just like unacceptable to him, and it has and I almost we were like at odds for like weeks because I was laughing hysterically trying to explain to him like bro you're missing this whole thread, but whatever. It's a great idea. It was too
Right.
fucking funny to like. I was like, I'll let this burn
Yeah,
for a while.
honestly, I make myself laugh so much. I don't remember most of what I write. I just kind of shit it out. But then I go through the notifications and see people picking up old posts, and I just laugh to myself and retweet myself all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
people will they'll DM me asking me about something. I don't know what you're talking about. Send it over. I don't remember writing that post.
Yeah. I figured you wouldn't
It
because
sounds like something I would have said, but
it was great. It was like I still I have it saved just because of how fucking funny I took screenshots, but And, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to like mention the other parts of your thread before I forget. You also have like I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit with the whole like recurrent ideas, but you and Sunny have the whole like Kali Ak vibe about like the Vedas and like history, like these histories of fiction. What is your? Can you like speak on that a bit? Because that's like probably the most like unique brand of thing from the two of your like your group, your cluster of Twitter.
Yeah, to be honest, Sunny was the one that really made me into it.
Mm-hmm.
I was familiar with the conspiracy posting. I mean, I was a lurker of that for a long time. So I've seen it around. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I've read into Aryan migration theory, which I believe that the Vedas do originate in the Arctic. But it
Mm-hmm.
was Sunny who first tipped me off to that knowledge that it wasn't just one meme of many. There's a lot of conspiracies. Right now. It's hard to settle on which ones are right. Honestly, I don't do that much thinking in this direction.
Okay.
This Sunny is so me. I do believe though. I don't have a. I don't. I do believe the idea that most of our historical knowledge is false. That a lot of it's been distorted over time. That
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge swath of it missing. Um, if you had asked me that a couple of years ago, when I had done more digging into it, I would have been able to point to a lot of discrepancies that would evidence that knowledge. But at this point, this is what I believe. I don't remember why I believe it.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, the you also do a lot of. Oh, actually, I do want to touch on the whole like your sexuality thread a bit. You have a whole like you did this great thread which is pretty much 100% backed by. It's one of the few threads you wrote that have like citations and stuff in it. About like men and women and like what's the why there's like a fall in like relationship satisfaction and like there's people women are like pair bonding to like
Mm,
the virtual and men are pair bonding to like I don't know they're destroying their libido and things like that nature. Um, can you touch on like your idea of like relationship sexuality and like modernity?
yeah, well, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I wrote the thread first, and then I went around and found citations for it, just because
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be amusing to get the citation. Uh, it's not like I use the evidence to then build a theory.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just one thing I've mentioned before. You can kind of concoct any kind of scientific theory and find citations to back it up. There's not really any kind of standard of evidence. The process of science is so slow that these conclusions won't be settled on, or I mean, all these studies they're not actually they're not peer tested, they're not peer reviewed at all, they're not
Mm-hmm.
regraded at all. You know, the Lancet Journal had come out a couple years ago saying that over 50% of the medical studies, Lancet is one of the biggest medical journals. They can't regrade them; they're just false data.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was a bit of a shit post putting citations in that thread.
Yeah.
I recall that. I
A
mean,
lot of science is
but
LARPing in that it has like the credit it has like
right,
you know approval from the
but
consensus, but it's not actually reproducible.
right, but I do believe in what I said there as a hormonal basis. I mean, the the reason why is that it's both conclusions that science is getting to on its own way, but also in the ancient Taoist literature, they already knew this stuff. It's just a kind of reconvergence from the modern stuff. They, I mean, they didn't know that it all traces down to oxytocin and probably a few other hormones too, but they did know things that like if you make a girl orgasm, she'll pair bond to you, um,
Mm-hmm.
and and things like that. They didn't have condoms back then, but they understood the importance of raw vaginal contact with the penis and the
Mm-hmm.
sexual fluid transfer between the two. So that's why I say that you know if you're using a condom, it's not really full sex. It's kind of neuter sex, but it's
I
not
mean, and if
creating
you've
the.
ever had sex, you
It,
can
it,
know that there's clearly a difference between the two of them, and like
right.
they're
And the
heuristic.
shocking thing, though, the shocking thing is when it comes to relationships, especially the American knowledge of how the woman's brain operates for these kinds of things that should be obvious. It's just there's such a gap in it. I think because people just don't talk about it in that much detail openly. There's so much false information,
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that 30% of women can't orgasm at all is totally false.
Mm-hmm.
Or even like people believe that like you can get pregnant during a woman's period, which is just not how the body works.
Mm-hmm.
So most probably 9 out of 10 men in America believe that there's no safe way to have unprotected sex. They even have some obscure term for what they call for just fucking a girl during her period. It's
Mm-hmm.
like time trap fertility window or something.
Yeah,
Um,
there's
they
an
don't
app
use that
actually
as
I
a separate.
use. There's an app I use with my ex called Natural Cycles that is machine learning plus like tracking your cycle with machine learning, and there's no hormones or
Right.
any. And like I've tried to give this to so many people, and everyone's like, "You're gonna get her pregnant." I'm like, you're missing. It's clearly real, but whatever. It's
I
obvious.
know. I mean,
There's a way that it's a mechanism. It has to work.
it should be normalized using these apps or just doing it in your head with all the women in your workplace, the women
Mm-hmm.
you meet in daily life, the women in your home. Um, it's I mean, even the concept that the woman's mind changes during the course of her cycle and not just being little, she gets more sensitive or more but that to a deep degree her attraction and the way
Mm-hmm.
she thinks changes. It's something that just not, it doesn't fit in with the modern mindset. They just don't believe that that's not how
Yeah.
the reality model works.
Yeah,
And it's
it's a
just
metaphysical
it,
issue. They can't even see it because it's not in the liberal ideology.
right, and it's one of the most obviously untrue out of all their pathologies.
Mm-hmm.
This is clearly evidence of it's untrue with any interaction um, between the two sexes. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem you have is that they live such unhealthy, unstable relationships because they're operating on these ideas. So they don't even, stress test it. Maybe that is the case. That well, um, but even just the idea that a woman's mind is not rational like a male, they don't even, it doesn't even occur to them that that she might change her memory when she thinks back to the narrative based on where she is in her monthly cycle. The thought doesn't even exist as a possibility.
Yeah, you ever try bringing that up to normies and watch how quickly you ruin any event? It is. I do not suggest that bringing this up to like the normal person because I have ruined many situations. Being like, oh well, saying which is something that everyone knows. Like you read any book from ever, and people will say effectively the same thing. And maybe like of
Mm-hmm.
anything that we know from the past that might be true is probably how our understanding of each sex and their dynamic. It's one of the few things that have been consistent since time immemorial. Like that's something we should think about. And there's a reason why it's not sexist, and it's of anything that we know, sexism is probably the most robust of the Lindy topics.
Yeah, sexism is it should be normalized.
Yeah, that one is there's indisputable at this point since it's in every single society and every book from every society says more or less the same thing. But that'll get this
Yeah, but I mean,
podcast taken off YouTube. So
it's true of a lot of things. That people don't believe in any kind of genetic or caste hierarchy. They don't. The idea that of course I know that if you have tall or smart parents, your children will also be tall or smart. But to make the connection that well, someone's station in life might be due to their genetic background, their familial, the quality of their genes. That's just it's really obvious, but completely taboo to the point where they don't even. It's not that they won't say it; they won't think it, and the models that society builds will operate on that unthinking of the obvious. Um,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, even the ideas of karma and caste, they're not Hindu ideas. I mean, they're defined as such, and they're related to the Hindu concept of reincarnation. But just the idea that someone's born into their station, and that's that's due to their background, and that they generally marry within it. This is
Mhm.
something that's true of all societies, but at this point, the memory of it is just lost. The only reason it's retained in Hinduism is just because the Vedas were missing.
Mhm.
I
I
mean,
think
you brought it up earlier. Uh, mean, the only reason Kaliak and Sunny and I have an affinity for the Vedas, I mean, what I believe is that it's the oldest and truest, most authentic record of Aryan spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I think all these these European pagans, they're kind of coping with their ex-Christianity. They don't want to drift too far away from what they were born into. I mean, they're all born Christians. But
Mm-hmm.
they turned atheist and then found their way towards paganism, and then wanted to find some connection with their nationality, so they go turn to their German, like Wotanism,
Mm-hmm.
German paganism. But the truth is that it all traces back to the Vedas at the earliest. I mean, that's the path of Aryan migration. It's the oldest and earliest and most authentic form. It's based on the teachings within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. um, so sorry. So you think that the Vedas are so what? I mean, I haven't read enough about the Vedas I think to understand the link in between like Arianism and Vedic understanding. I have read like basic stuff and like the same symbology between the two. But outside of that, all I know from the Vedas is like what I've read from like I've read like maybe the Bhagavad Gita, and that's the closest I've come. But would you say like I know that you guys are making a GitHub of like all the of essential readings. I saw that. Would that be like linked in there? Do you think?
Yeah, Sonny's working on that right now. He's also working on the teachings are fairly obscured within the text just because there's so much. It's he's trying to bring it out and make it more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly been a while since I've looked back on it too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot of it just the values I've internalized, but also just from a program of a kind of looking at the traditionalist program. What people are doing with trying to reconstruct the Aryan and Hyperborean spirituality. It's just that's where they should be looking at. It's not something that I make my full focus on, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I came to Twitter, the reason I had come was I wanted to follow Nick Land and engage with him. I was an acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the traditional stuff is what comes natural for me. I mean, that's just what it's obvious truth to me.
Yeah, that and the human biodiversity stuff is what I find the most interesting from your account. You're doing the Hakan archive though, and I'm sad that I missed Hakan actually on Twitter because he has the most interesting tweets I've ever seen.
But, yeah, Hakan's a special character. His level of racism is
impressive.
I wish I knew what journals he was reading to get that level of detail. Or I wish there was some kind of starter pack or reading list I could. It comes from just he must be in the field. It's just from.
He has to be an anthropology.
A PhD. Right. But I mean, I came originally from Nick Lamb, and I kind of scouted out the network and found other sites. He's not Nick Lamb's. I mean, his content's not the best on Twitter. Somewhat disappointing. But
I'm impressed that he shitposts. He's like a famous philosopher who shitposts on Twitter, which I think is the best. I'm trying to get.
I know, but he shitposts like a boom is the problem. At Condo, I would catch up on his tweets every day. I would just go onto his account and make sure I consumed everything. He was one of the best. Land Shark Rides and BAP are the other good ones.
Mm-hmm. Wait, who was this? You said BAP and someone else? Who was the other person?
And Land Shark.
Oh, Land Shark. Yeah, Land Shark's great.
And of course, Sunny too.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But other than that,
anyone who's been on the Sunny is actually the most popular episode by a long shot, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like views wise, by a long shot. But so Hakan.
Yeah, actually, I convinced Sunny to originally join Twitter, sharing with him Bronze Age Pervert stuff, and it wasn't like what he had said was just like, it feels like something I could have written. I said, I know, I felt the same way. So I've been talking for a long time that all the oral knowledge that was being developed in 4chan, it needed to be put to writing. It was all getting lost. And that's basically what BAP had done with Bronze Age Mindset. Of course, it's a somewhat different field, but he's coming, he is his feet firmly in Fit and X,
Mm-hmm.
whereas we come a lot stronger out of Oral and X. But,
Oh, very clearly, yeah.
but, uh, but it's like all these people, I mean, you know, they're born out of this extreme environment that was like the source of all internet culture and knowledge for the last decade. But you know, Aura now it got destroyed basically. What exists now is 4chan since like 2013, 2012. It's
It's
just
Reddit.
a
It's become
zombie.
Reddit.
Yeah, right. But the problem is that they all kind of got dissipated. They went out to like Discord, Telegram, and on Twitter. But it's like there's so many. All the most important people of the last internet generation, they're all born out of apartment. Like now they're starting to kind of resurface. Like, I mean, I'm not surprised that if I come to Twitter, I get a big following, and kind of clout, as they call it, cult around me, just
Mm-hmm.
because I was, because I mean, anyone that was born from that era of 4chan is a special person on the internet.
Yeah,
They're, they came from the golden age.
I
I mean,
agree. Even if you're not like, yeah, there's a way of writing and thinking that gets cultivated on 4chan that no matter where you go online, that people immediately flock to you.
right?
Yeah.
You know, my case is a little bit special in the sense that I was fairly optimistic about maintaining anonymity, even up
Mm-hmm.
until like 2015. I had never had a BBS account or any kind of username or like privacy. I just went 4chan. Once I left 4chan, I just drifted between micro boards and
Mm-hmm.
I started a few of my own, but never had a name until finally I ended up joining Discord just because I wanted to pull a server, which I did. I had taken over the full thing and
Mm-hmm.
crushed it. But I had gotten a cult following in the meantime of my trolling that I was pretty shocked about because I never interacted with people online at a social level. So I didn't expect to have kind of manipulative power over anyone or this level of kind of social charisma.
Mm-hmm.
But I ran with it once I saw that, and that's when I kind of got absorbed into more social posting. Which I just brought that weight over on Twitter. But I mean, and even on Twitter, the main reason I left Discord was because I don't have as much time. I'm not in need right now. I'm doing
Yeah.
some inline in real life projects that take up a lot of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was in need on Twitter, I mean, this isn't what I mean is this isn't even my full power level. First on Twitter, I had like a group chat harems and a, a server, companion server on Discord, but it's like I couldn't maintain all of it. That was just when I was like less than 500 followers. Like right now, I would have a full boot camp installed if I wanted.
We need a glimpse of Maya's full power level on Twitter, just so we can have something to aspire to. But
Yeah, maybe one day. Uh, I'm not so confident I'll even remain on Twitter for. I I, I made a post this other day, probably not through the end of 2020. I
oh,
don't tend to stay too long on these communities. Um, I might I might trash my account, regenerate as a new one, or just move on to other networks. But I usually I don't try to stay too long because I feel like I've exhausted the worth of a place of the community networking with the good people in the area,
mm-hmm.
and kind of exploring the limits of its interface.
That's fair. Well, we'll hopefully make an archive of your post prior to your exit, so we don't have another Hakan issue. Um, so
Yeah,
I'll make
definitely
sure to
intend to.
yeah. Oh, all right, awesome. I'll make sure to link like your major threads in the description. And beyond that, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
No problem. This is fun. I think I was too strapped for time earlier, but I think I'll try to do more podcast interviews. So if you want to have me on again, I'll be happy
Oh
to.
hell yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. No, we'll definitely do another pass through Twitter soon and get all the big hitters back on.